To BSides San Antonio. Before we begin, I would like to give a quick shout out to our diamond sponsor, USAA, and St. Mary's for helping to make this event possible. We're also grateful for the support of Spectre Ops. Divi Anand is here today to present her passion, which is digital forensics. She gets that passion from her father, who also works in this space. I'll turn the mic over to Divi as they discuss this topic and dive into this world. Join me in welcoming Divi Anand.
Hello, everybody. I hope you are having a good morning so far, and you continue to have a great day at this amazing conference that is organized by BSides and Divi. And before we start with anything else, I would like to pop a quick question. How many of you think cybersecurity is spelled as one word? And how many of you think it's spelled as two words? How many of you think it's spelled with a hyphen in the middle? We've got a good mix. So to clear that off, the National Institute of Standards and Technology, that is the NIST, spells cybersecurity as one word. And the UK National Cyber Security Center spells cybersecurity as two words. So it comes, again, it boils down to American and British English. Now, why do I mention that? I just mentioned that because my journey in cybersecurity also began before I knew cybersecurity could be spelled in more than one ways. For many people, it's something that they come across gradually, maybe through a job, a course, or a headline. But for me, it was something that I grew up with. It was a part of my household, part of my everyday conversations, basically woven into my upbringing, and I'm so glad that it was. As I was growing up, and I used to see my dad do all these cool things, analyze different systems, he often used to say what you see on the screen right here: humans keep secrets and computers don't. And that line stuck with me, not because it sounded so cool, but because it hinted at the quiet power that technology holds in revealing the truth, if you know how to ask the right questions. In forensics, every hard drive is a crime scene. Every log file is a witness, and every deleted file could be a confession. Instead of analyzing DNA samples and maybe blood patterns, we're basically analyzing a computer system. And if you ask me, it's almost the same amount of interesting. So what excites me the most in this field is not just technology, but it's the art of storytelling, how you build a narrative out of almost nothing, just a computer. And that's why I'm here today. I'm here to convey how free tools and a curious mindset can create a digital detective like you and I. So let's get into it. This is what our session is going to look like today. First of all, let me tell you, we are going through a fictional case. We are taking an example just to understand the theory of forensics and how we basically work with it. So I'm going to show you what the case looks like for today. And basically, then we'll be diving into the analysis of the case. Then we will build the narrative out of this entire analysis that we performed today. And although I've mentioned questions in the last, please feel free to pop any questions at any point of time. I would want this session to be as interactive as possible and as fruitful as everybody would like it to be. And let's jump into it. Now, let's get into this case. Picture this: Capital Computing, a major tech player in the industry, is dealing with something that no company or nobody ever wants to deal with: suspicion from within. Senior consultant Ethan Thomas was under the radar after his supervisor Daniel Smith noticed some odd behavior. It could be hint of disloyalty, suspicious conversations, or maybe some behavior changes, maybe an alert from the SOC team. So it could be anything. And that's when Boo and I, the investigation team, steps in. So this is what the summary of the case basically looks like. For the image of Ethan's Windows 10 system was acquired using Access Data FTK Imager, which is a trusted enterprise level tool, acquisition tool. and it was handed over to us, the investigation teams, by strictly maintaining a chain of custody. For those who are new to the term chain of custody, it basically means recording every handoff of the evidence from acquisition to analysis, just to make sure that the evidence wasn't tampered with at any point of time, basically checking the integrity of the evidence. And what is the goal for us to do? It is a couple of things. First of all, we want to see if this guy, Ethan Thomas, was exfiltrating any proprietary, any sensitive data for his own use, maybe going against the acceptable usage policy of the company. Maybe he was trying to perform corporate espionage, or maybe even he was trying to cover his tracks after he did all of this. So this is what our summary looks like. Any questions so far about the case? Okay. So our job today is to understand what really happened on that machine. And for that today, we're going to use a couple of tools that are listed on the screen. First of all, we're going to be, of course, using Access Data FTK Imager. Now, Access Data has been recently acquired by a company called Xtero. So now it's called Xtero, but the version that's downloaded on our personal system and the one that I have performed the analysis on is Access Data, and that's why I have mentioned the Access Data FTK Imager. And then the few other tools that we didn't listen today is the RegRipper and Eric Zimmerly, and you'll see how we basically use them for our analysis. Now you could just stop at the FTK Imager, but remember the tool that we're using today is a free tool. It's the Imager, FTK Imager version, and not the actual forensic toolkit, which is just the FTK, and it lets you do deeper analysis. Basically, you would not need the other few tools that we're using today if you were using the commercial version of FTK. But my goal here today is to basically promote the free stuff and see how you can become a digital detective without being able to pay. So let's get into it. So what you see on the screen is Access Data FTK Imager. It's version 3.4.2.6. This is the one that I'm using today. You can see it has all these different panes, and each of them has its own purpose. We will see how we can use it. Now, like I said, the commercial version does lend more capabilities, but the free version itself, a lot can be done with it. It's fairly simple, it's very intuitive, and we'll see how we get into it. Now, we've set the stage. Let's dive into how we actually identify and collect or triage artifacts. Now, you see, like any other tool available in the market, there is a file version. You can click on the file, and you see all these different options to choose from. Now, once you're doing live analysis, basically doing it somewhere live, if you were acquiring the image, you could use the local drive of the suspect evidence, like the suspect machine, as your source. But today we're using a much safer, cleaner method, that is the image of the evidence file. Now, when you click on Add Evidence, you can see we are provided with all these different options that you could choose from. Each of them serves a different meaning. So if you were to choose the physical image, that basically means that you're using the portable version of FTK Imager on our live system. Then you can see there is an image file option, which is what they're be using today, very safe, very keen. And then you can also see your contents of a folder choice. It's basically when you're analyzing only a particular folder, which has your evidence, and you don't have to go through this massive evidence. Now you can see I am loading triage acquisition.e01 image. E01 stands for encase image file, and it's one of the most trusted image formats and works with almost all forensic tools, including the one that you're using today. So once loaded, we're presented with this evidence tree on the left, which basically mirrors the file system structure of our evidence. And let's start. It's very easy to navigate, as you can see. You can just click on the plus button. Naturally, we go to the largest volume of the evidence today, which is NTFS. You can click onto it. You can see all of these file lists on the right that you see. Basically, the folders that exist within the folder that you're clicking. You can just, through this intuitive interface, you could easily go through the subdirectories and see what you're looking for. Click on these files, see what they're about. FTK Imager basically lets you preview all these files once you've acquired the image. Now, you can see that I have created the read folder, and whatever user were interested in, for instance, today we're interested in Ethan's system, I could just click into his user folder, go into this file. Right now, I am in the recycle bin. I can click on the file that I'm interested in. You can see on the bottom right, there's a few details about the file that I'm breaking in. Now, right now, the one that I'm showing is basically a deleted file, so it does not give a lot of information, but you can still see that it is something related to Dropbox. Now, if you were to use a regular file, it would give you more information. On the left border, you see a properties tab, which gives us rich metadata. Now, metadata can be anything. It can be timestamps, NTFS attributes, permissions, small things that nobody lets us solve their issues in the end. You can also do hash verification of the image to make sure the integrity of the evidence is preserved. Now we will be creating a custom content image. This is where FTK lets us be selective. And as the name suggests, it's basically about creating a smaller image out of this big evidence where we can store only the artifacts that are of our real use. So here's what I grab onto. I first of all grab onto the master file table, which lies in the root of the system. It basically is the heartbeat of the file system, and it tracks every file. As simple as right-clicking on the file, you can see there's an option to add to custom content image. And once you keep adding these files, on the left bottom where you saw properties tab before, you'll see everything that I just keep adding to this smaller image that I'm trying to create. The other thing that I will grab onto is, of course, the recycle deal, because in an acquisition and investigation like ours today, recycle bin holds a lot of importance because a lot of files could have been deleted. When I go into the user or whatever user you're interested in, I'm going to grab onto the end-user.dat file. Now, this is a file that holds 80% of user-specific information, and we'll see eventually how I use this file by parsing it into another tool and extracting information from it. The other thing that I'm going to grab onto is the app data folder. Now, like an investigation like ours today, we will load application analysis. Why? Because we're dealing with ALP, accepted in usage policy, and the person of interest might have been using some apps which are of anti-forensic means or whatever XYZ reason. And then I also lab onto some regular folder that we use on an everyday basis. We use desktop, we use downloads, we use Dropbox, we use pictures, all of these different folders that might hold a lot of important content within them. I grab all of these and add them to the custom content image. Then under the Windows folder, I have the prefetch file. Now, prefetch is a folder that traces program executions. We will see how we use them by parsing them into another tool again. The next thing that I'm going to grab onto is going into the System32 config folder, and I'm looking for hives here. Now, hives are of different kinds. There are SAM, software, security, so many different files, and each of them tells us user-specific information, and we will see how we extract these details from the hives eventually as well. So I grab onto all of these hives, add them to the custom content image. I also grab onto the Windows event logs for more labs related to Windows. And very last, but the most crucial piece of information that I'm grabbing onto lies under root Windows INF folder. It's called the setup.api.dev. This is something that tracks every device that was ever connected to the system that we're investigating today. Any USB, any driver, and the kind of investigation that we do today, again, to reiterate, it's something where we're trying to find out if this person was exfiltrating any sensitive proprietary data of any kind. So we need this information to do USB analysis to see if there are any important files that lies within these USBs outside of the system that Ethan was assigned. So once you've added all of these things that are important to the investigation, I can just simply click on create image. I can add a case number for your reference or however you want it for your evidence. Here I'm adding 2019 XYZ. You can give an evidence number. You can give an unique description to your evidence. As an examiner, it is up to you how you want to do that. Once I do that, I will click on next. You can give a destination for where you want this image to get saved. Now this image will be saved in a .ad1 format, which is the access data proprietary format. And unlike .in01 image, this one's mostly only used on access data and the tools that are related to access data and cannot be used in every other evidence. But basically, we will be using some folders that lie within the smaller image, and we will pass them into other tools to continue with the investigation. So with just this curated snapshot, we have gone from a massive system of evidence to a very targeted container with only high-value clues. And next, we'll dive into how we actually use these files. Now, in case you lost track of what all I was grabbing onto, these are all the folders and files that I added to the custom content image. Now, once you become an examiner and you start doing multiple cases, each case, of course, is different and has its own investigation pack. For every kind of case, you would probably need to use and access different folders, depends from one case to another. But today we're here to discuss a very general kind of analysis, very general kind of investigation. And these are the folders and files that you would mostly use in any investigation, and would just analysis of these folders would give you a lot of information. Now let's get onto something that is very quietly powerful. First, I'm going to show you how I do that. This is called a RegRipper tool. Basically, it is a tool that lets you rip files. Now remember, we extracted all of these highs when you're creating the .ad1 image. So SAN, software, end user, system, analysis of each hives give you an answer to different question. So here you can see I have uploaded the hive file. Right now I am examining the end user about that hive. And then I have added a report file where I wanted to save this hive. Now, this is not the only tool that is available in the art market, but this one has been around for years and for a very good reason, because it gets the job done fast, clean, and in simple English, most importantly. And here what we're doing is basically trying to extract information from these hives and put it into a much easier format. I'm going to the directory where this file got saved. Now, there are two end user files, right? One is the step-by-step of how this file got ripped, and the second one is the end user text file. Now, it is as easy as you use a notepad on everyday basis. You can just hit Control A, Control F. You can put a sub key. Let's say I'm putting recent here, and you can keep going down in the text file, just scroll, looking for things that really matter to our investigation. And as I keep scrolling, you can see I have found these keys like recent file key list. Then let's scroll on to something really important. You can see I have leased something called recent document. So by ripping this hive, end user.dat hive that we had extracted from the image using FTK tool and uploading it here, I have basically converted it into a text file, which helps us do deeper analysis. And you can just go through this document and see maybe what the user was accessing, what were his intentions, and what was the serial number is also given, as you can see. What order was he accessing these files in? So it's important when you're creating a narrative. So on ripping each kind of hive, you will get some very important user-specific information. So any questions so far before I go on to the Yep, so these are the different registries that we ripped. So now that I'm not showing you how to rip each registry, I just showed you end-user.dat, but I wanted to go over what information you would get if you perform each kind of ripping on each registry, each hive. So if you were looking for user account information and credential-related information, you would do the same process with the SAN hive. You would just upload it, rip it, and it would convert it into a text file. You can scroll down, scroll up, look for information about the system. If you were looking for system configurations, you would rip the system hive. Now, the security hive tells you, as the name suggests, security policy settings. The software hive, which is very important in our investigation today, because again, to reiterate, we see if this person was using any programs that were probably anti-forensic or had any intent like anti-forensic intent. So your software hive would give you a list of installed programs. User class.bat file would give you shareback data, which is basically folder navigation, how the files were accessed, what was the pattern they were accessed in. And end user dot that, like I just showed you, it tells you about logs that were recently accessed by this user and all sorts of activities. Any questions? All right. So now that I have shown you what each hive does, and you don't have time to rip each hive, but I did my analysis, and once I've ripped all of these hives, I just jotted down the main information that is relevant to your investigation. Now think of yourself as a storyteller and just jot down the things that really matter to the case. You don't need all of that fluff that was shown on the text files. Those are the things that you basically need for investigation to prove or unprove something. So from system information, I got all of this information like what OS was running on the computer, what was the name of the computer, which time zone it was based in, the install date, the last shutdown time, some auto start programs of the system. In the users and group criteria, I found out some really crucial information. I found out that there are two users that exist on the system, E. Thomas and Ethan Local, along with other regular users like administrator, guest, etc. I found out the last login time of this user, of the two login accounts. I found out that these two users have admin privileges. And I also found out that there are some password hints that are there for the user, which, if you ask me, that's pretty much very good information for investigation. From also some other highs that we ripped, I found out all of this information. Now, I found out that there is some specific search terms that he was using. This could be found out from antuser.dat file as well. We found out that he was trying, the Windows search terms, he was trying to look for sensitive on his computer. He was trying to look for CC. He was trying to look for, on his other profile, he was trying to look for intellectual, sensitive, proprietary, some terms that he should probably not use together if he's trying to do something anti-forensic. He was looking on producing documents like company sensitive document, resignation letter, intellectual property, and some notable application that I found was he was running Dropbox, or IronKey, he was running CCleaner, Party, LibreOffice. So if anybody is paying attention, can you tell me from just this, do you have anything in mind, like what is going on? Why is he searching all of these things? Anything that you want to probably, any thoughts? Anybody? Yep. Yeah, he's trying to look for things that he should probably not look for, or even if he's sure, he's probably using these applications along with these accessing and deaccessing of files like Dropbox. CKilo is also an anti-forensic tool. We'll see how all of this comes together. But from just this, we have a little bit of information about what he was trying to do. So we're up to something good. All right, let's shift gears and dive into something that I really like doing, application analysis. Now, this might look like a lot of information to you, but you'll understand what this is about in just a minute. So application analysis is simple. The goal here is simple. It is basically to follow applications to see if any of these applications were used to sneak data out of the company, maybe to clean milk guide, maybe to clean a system. And we will see and learn about all these applications that were installed, uninstalled, maybe used during the time frame of interest, any tools that hint at stealth, maybe encryption tools, any tool that basically could relate to our case. So we are doing application analysis. And this to reiterate, in a case like ours today, information about these applications holds a lot of value to us. There are basically 4 kinds of application analysis. If you were looking for something like executed programs, show how often they were used, when were they first used, last used, you would run the prefetch analysis. Now remember when we were acquiring the smaller image, the custom content image, we added the prefetch contents when I told you that it tracks all applications of like when they were being used, etc. So the tool that we're using today, you have to pass a file into it, so the tool can basically use that file to give us some information and like extract input from that file and give us output. So you would load this location, the prefetch contents, into the tool. Now, if you were looking for anything folders directly related that the user was accessing, maybe showing interaction history, you would analyze the shell bag. Now, you see I've added 4 different locations. So it's as easy as just grab all of these 4 things from the evidence, put them in one folder, pass them through the tool, and you'll get the output. You'll see how in a minute. Jump list basically displays recently opened files via maybe Windows Explorer. Timestamps you'll get app content for that. You would pass the recent folder, and you would also pass the recent folder for link file analysis, which is the shortcut files also. These are files that were recently accessed using shortcuts in Windows. Maybe they will also include file paths, access time, user details, etc. So I am going to show you how to perform the application analysis on one of these files. Let's look into Make files. Now you can see this is a command line tool, so it's really easy to use. I don't know, Mommy, if you like a PowerShell, but today it is our friend. So as you can see, maybe you cannot see very clearly from what I'm running, but I'll give you that later as well. You can just run the command on the command line interface. I ran the to by just right-clicking on the downloaded Eric Zimmerman tool and opened it in PowerShell. In the -d section of the command, which is very small right now, I passed the location that I showed you before this. And in the output -csv, I gave there I want my output to be saved. And it created a huge CSV file for me. You can see all of these columns with timestamps of like when were things created, when were they modified, machine IDs, paths. So this is what it looks like. But I like to clean the house, remove the fluff, and keep only the good stuff. So think of yourself, again, I would like to say, as a storyteller. Just keep the rows and columns that really matter to the case. Now, this is what I grabbed onto right now. I grabbed onto the target created column, the target modified, the path, and machine ID. Now, the tool that we used for this was the Eric Zimmerman tools, who is a former FBI agent. And he has all of these different tools like LECMD for link file analysis, PCMD for prefetch analysis, and all of these other tools following the similar name pattern. And you, like I said, it wasn't visible, but we'll give it to you again if you want what command I use. You basically write LECMD-D for the directory of the location of the file that you want to input into D, and -CSV basically where you want it exported. So now you see from all of that, I got a simple Excel sheet, which might have been very difficult for me to, if I was just looking into the evidence without parsing it into a tool like this, it is difficult to understand things like these. So from all of that, we found out a few important pieces to our investigation. First of all, from shellbag analysis, if you were to use the shellbag tool, you would find out information about USB analysis. So everything was happening between March 31st to April 3rd. Total number of devices that were connected to the system were 5 unique USB devices to both eThomas and Ethan Local. These are the names of the 5 USBs that were connected. We found out that information as well. And what was suspicious about this, that all devices were accessed by those 3 users within the same amount of time. And also the last USB activity was recorded on April 3rd, 2018, which suggested that there is possible coordinated data transfer that is happening between the system and these USB drives. There's also some more information that I found out. Reiterating the fact, think of yourself as a storyteller, remove everything that you don't need and focus on the things you need. Now, these are the most important things that happened during the timeline, according to me. It all started on March 27th, little around the midnight, when he was accessing some sensitive files, as you can see by the name, like sensitive documents, client list. He then went on to access some mere proprietary data. He then installed Dropbox. He was then accessing storage devices, which probably was using for data transfer. We don't know anything yet. This is all probable things that are happening. He went on to re-access some more proprietary data that we found from link file analysis. On March 31st, at 3:54 p.m., he created a resignation letter on his desktop. I think he did that once he thought that he has enough information to perform corporate espionage. Maybe he can land a job with all of this information if he sells it to some other company. Maybe after he had enough information, that's when he created a resignation letter, I think. Then he went on to access PuTTY, maybe for remote accessing some server. Then he again connected a few USB devices. And at the end of all this, he ran an anti-forensic tool, which is called the CCleaner. Maybe he was trying to hide his tracks. Maybe he was trying to hide everything that he did so far. But as I said, computers don't keep secrets. So, any thoughts right now? Anything that you would like to share and what you think is happening? We'll get on to it. Any questions? All right. Okay, now with you all, I would also like to go through some 4Ds and files that I found interesting on the system of this user. First of all, I accessed the e-commerce documents folder. Now you could also access this folder by just clicking into the FTK image or click in the documents folder where you do it. But when I created about 81 image, when it creates an image, you can also access those files in the smaller image in your own system on the Windows Explorer, which makes it very convenient because we know how to use it. So you can see on the documents folder, there are things like e-commerce, mails. That doesn't raise a red flag for me at the moment, but he has something like that. He has intellectual property document. He has proprietary corporate data document. He also has a sensitive potential field list. These all sound very interesting to me, but we'll see how what maybe he has it because he's an important user of the company, but we don't know. Anyway, then we go on to the e-commerce downloads folder. Like I told you, you can also access the folder on FTK Mojo. But you can see that in the downloads folder, he has installed Dropbox and LibreOffice, which raises a small little red flag for me. Why does he have LibreOffice and Dropbox installed just when he was accessing these sensitive documents? On his other profile, he has another downloads folder that has PuTTY installed, and he also has a cat and dog screensaver, which I thought he must be like a cat and dog guy, but it drove the small flag for me. So before I open any of the files, I like to run them through a malware analysis tool. So I ran the screensaver on a virus total, and I found out that that has malware. So just a small quick tip: before you open any file, make sure that you check that this file that you're accessing does not have any malware. So I checked that this one has malware, don't access it. I went on to access some more folders. I used the Dropbox folder. You can see within the Dropbox folder, it shows that he has added Ethan Thomas notes. He has added company sensitive document. He has added sensitive potential client list. So up until now, I thought maybe he just has it because he's an important member of the company. But now he also has these files on Dropbox. Maybe he was trying to exfiltrate data. Then I opened some of the files that were really relevant to the case. I found out the content of E-Thomas resignation letter. So a very well written resignation letter. He says he's thanking everybody, all of his co-workers, his team. He's saying that he's considering ending his employment at the company because he wants to focus on more things, career development, and only for a couple of months he wants to pause his employment. Maybe during this time phase, he tries to go to other companies, sell this data, see if he can get more money, see if he can get a better job. If everything is good, thumbs up, he'll leave forever. If that doesn't happen, I have a backup option. I can come back whenever I want. Then I opened the sensitive potential client list. This has some data that you probably don't want leaving your company. Now, the companies, whoever made the case, was probably being lazy. They didn't name the companies really well. But yeah, we have some data related to these companies. Then I have Ethan Thomas notes, which before to me did not raise a flag. But when I opened the file, it has a heading that very big says company proprietary. So I'm assuming this is also some sensitive information. Now, I also found out about the Internet browser history summary again through the analysis that we previously performed. I found out that on E. Thomas' profile, he was, of course, downloading Dropbox. He was looking for registry clears through Google. He was looking for capital computing competitors very blatantly, very openly. He was looking for privacy cleaners. He was trying to see how to erase drives with CCleaner, maybe because he didn't know how to do it. And then he went on to download their tool. This is all from only one of his profiles. On the second profiles, we again done a PuTTY profile. He used a research to see how to use PuTTY. He went on to Indeed to probably look for jobs. Then he Google searched taking IP data. Here, IP does not mean the IP address. Intellectual property is what probably he means. Taking IP data to competitors, anti-forensic tools. He also looked for a site for anti-forensic tools. So again, like anybody has any thoughts just from the browsing history maybe? Any thoughts? All right. But you get the idea. Maybe he was trying to do something he shouldn't. Wow. Okay. So with all of this information, we have probably guessed maybe this user was up to something, and we have created a narrative, right? A clear story of what has happened. And by the end, what do we have? We have information about apps that he was using. We have information about the timestamps. When did he access these tools? He can probably just go ahead and say, oh no, I was using Dropbox to probably send pictures of my daughter somewhere. But no, we see in the Dropbox folder that you have these sensitive files. We see that they are totally aligned with the timeline of when you were accessing these files, when you were trying to connect these USB. So everything has a timestamp for us and we can back our story. So let's make a narrative out of everything that we have. A seemingly normal employee at Capital Computing, trusted and reputed, and I say this because he already has these important information that is saved on his system, so he must be trusted and respected in the company that he's working in. But behind these scenes, he has a pioneer user, Ethan Local, which was created. Now, the creation of a second user account was the first breadcrumb for an examiner like myself, because it could be a secret sider into the system, or maybe he was trying to do something else from just regular stuff that he does at his company. So that raised a new flag, a red flag for any examiner, and that's how you should think like. The activity began on March 27th, as you guys saw on the timeline, when he started accessing sensitive files, proprietary files, all of these, reaccessing of these files. This wasn't just out of curiosity. This was probably reconnaissance for an attack that he was trying to do on the company. These files held client data, trade secrets, and corporate strategies that he was probably trying to exfiltrate. He then started collecting tools. A digital toolbox was assembled, and by March 28th, he had tools like Dropbox, which was probably a means to exfiltrate data through cloud. He had LibreOffice, which was probably to evade detection. He had all these other tools that hinted at stealth. So every tool here was intentional and it was not out of nothing. Dropbox, like I said, was for upload, and he was selecting all of these like a digital burglar, picking the right lock. He was accessing these files along with downloading these tools. On March 31st, before that, he was connecting USB devices. So multiple USB between March 31st and April 3, we saw there were 5 USBs that were connected. So multiple USBs were being connected, and it seemed that they have all these important files within them. They're not just USB devices that were connected for nothing, but they had important files within them. So that didn't just happen. They followed the path of the data from the source to the destination, and from application analysis and registry analysis, we saw very good information on when these USBs were connected and what are files they had. On March 31st, the resignation suddenly appeared on the system, and that coincided with continuous access to all of these sensitive files that I'm talking about. And it wasn't just an afterthought, it was a getaway plan for Ethan Thomas once he knew that he had enough information that now he can just go out. And the fire moves were downloading of applications like Putty, maybe to connect to the remote server once he was out of the company, when he was off for 2 months. He probably wanted to re-access his system because he wouldn't have access to his system when he is not a bride. So he probably downloaded it on the system so he can make sure once he's out of the company, he can probably access the system again. So he wasn't just stealing data, he was also downloading other applications like CCleaner because he was trying to cover his tracks like a professional. So why would he do that? If he was not doing anything wrong, he would not need to create his drive using tools like CCleaner, which are basically in most of the companies against the acceptable usage policy. And then, this was no mistake. Everything was pre-planned. It was a premeditated, multi-layered, and executed with precision attack. It's basically a crime scene in front of us. Everything was well thought, and you didn't get to know this until it actually happened. An attack like this actually happened inside your company. And they often go undetected until the damage is done, and only through layered forensics and proper detection is how you can analyze these attacks and come across them before they actually are executed. So he didn't just steal data, he reminded us that why vigilance is important within the firewall just as crucial as it is outside of the firewall, right? So users within your company could be up to some notice and you wouldn't even know until he leaves the company and he self-borrows this data to a company for his own use, right? And like I said in the beginning, why people hide things, computers didn't. So you should probably have regular audits to check all of this. Now, once we all have this information, we know that this wasn't just a breach for the company. It was a wake-up call because the enemy within is the hardest to detect. But because of you and I, investigators like us, we knew that computers cannot hide secrets, and all day humans will try to cover their tracks, but you can always find out evidence to back your story. So, what would the future roadmap look like if something like this happens in your company? First of all, you will try to seek law enforcement assistance. So, maybe coordinate with legal authorities to pursue on criminal charges. Of course, it should align with your company policies. See if you can take it to a higher level. Then you should conduct a review of the physical devices. So locate and secure all of the other USBs that we know he was using, probably any other drives that he was using, to verify that there was no node transfer done, so that these files are not exfiltrated somewhere else, and basically extend the investigation to other systems so that you can see that no additional damage is done. All of this evidence has been secured. You have it with yourself, you have it with your company, and now it cannot go out. Last and of course not the least is implement enhanced security measures. Like I said, periodic audits would really help. Security training based on acceptable usage policy, risk of data exfiltrations, all of these to a users serves as a pretty good story for everything and everybody in your company, and it reduces the risk of policy violations. So with just that, we have gone from almost nothing, just an image of a system in the beginning of our analysis, to a proper evidence-backed report that we can probably provide to the company. Now, as an investigator, as an analyst, your job is to just perform the investigation and get this report to the company. It basically depends on whoever's the decision maker of the company to decide if this is a violation of acceptable use policy or not. But if we use our common sense, it probably is. But our job is to not give a conclusion, but just to perform analysis and give the report. So with that, we have finished our investigation, and we have come to a conclusion that people hide things and computers don't. Are there any questions? Any questions? Anything anybody would like to ask about FTK image or anything? And I'll be around for the rest of the day, so come say hi. And if anybody has anything, yep. Yep.
So I understand there's a limited I researched it while you were talking, so I understand there's a limited capability with Mac systems. Can you talk about some of the differences between the Mac capabilities and the capabilities on the Windows machines?
Well, so the tool that we use today, FTK Measure, it's mostly widely used for Windows artifacts, but you can also use it for Linux and Mac artifacts. Companies like Xtero or Axel Data, they do have some specific tools that can be used for Mac OS as well, and not just Windows, or just focuses on Mac. And you could probably use those tools. And the one that we were using today, that cannot acquire an image from a Mac system, like you can do, or you can acquire an image for a Windows system, but you can always use a Mac image file, the pre-processed image file, put it into the system and then analyze it, but it wouldn't probably help you acquire the image like it would help for a Windows system. Yeah. Any other questions?
We have time for one more question.
And like I said, I'll be around for the day if anybody has anything they'd like to talk about later.
Thank you so much for the session. I want to ask Ed, do you find any other security alerts while the actions are going on your different tools that in future will help you for investigation?
Yeah, like I said, there was a file probably that had malware, so we can investigate where that came from. But of course, right now I'm doing a very specific analysis for only one system. So that is the only system that I analyzed at the moment. So I wouldn't find company-wide alerts that might have been happening. But if you were to extend your investigation, then it might help. Yeah.
I thank you, Divi. Let's thank her for her wonderful presentation.
Thank you. Thank you. Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. Yeah.
Enjoy the rest of your sessions. We'll be back here in about 10 minutes with Alan Scott and his presentation on Gen AI chatbots.
Salary that there be and be in a flash. They wipe.
Flash. Oh, all right. Thank you so much. You were paying it.